Well, it's official. Bill Belichick is back coaching football, but the caveat is it's not in the NFL. It's in the college ranks because he signed as the head coach of the UNC Tar Heels. He's signing a 5-year contract, and joining us now to talk about it is CBS Sports NFL staff writer Tyler Sullivan. And Tyler, when you saw this news break, what was your reaction?
Well, it was kind of a disappointment because, as you referenced, I cover the NFL. I want to cover Bill Belichick. Now that he's going to UNC, I lose Bill Belichick a little bit. So a little disheartening for me, but just from a bigger picture standpoint, wow, because I thought that this was a little bit of a ploy, and I think a lot of people did that said, okay, he's kind of out there right now flirting with UNC because he wants NFL teams to say, hey, no, we want Bill Belichick. We want to bring him into our organization. So the fact that this now came down and is official and he is going to be the head coach of the Tar Heels, it's surprising. But I think the biggest surprise, it's a 5-year deal reportedly. He's going to be 73 in April. He's going to be 78 when this is done. Bill Belichick is committing to this team for the long term. So this doesn't feel like a short kind of window here to just get back into coaching. He's looking to build something over the next 5 years, which is fascinating.
Why did he do this? Why did he decide that a college job was worth taking rather than trying to wait out something that fit for him in the NFL?
Yeah, so I think this is interesting. And you talk about the emotions of trying to figure out, okay, once we knew that it was happening, what were the emotions that went through? One of them for me was kind of good for Belichick because I do think that there is a little bit of a salty taste in his mouth at what went on last year, specifically with the Atlanta Falcons and the lack of attention that he got in the head coaching hiring cycle, where it kind of felt like he was without a dance partner and he was going down the road of potentially being the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. And it looked like for a minute that was going to happen. And they go in a different direction. They hire Raheem Morris and they go younger and they kind of have a different structure than they would have had with Bill Belichick. If he's reading the tea leaves and he's getting that sense this year where he may be shut out again, I just don't know if he wants to necessarily hold off an opportunity that he clearly thinks is promising with UNC to just kind of hold out hope for the NFL to come calling. We're talking about Bill Belichick, the Super Bowl winning greatest head coach of all time. I almost feel like it'd be a little bit beneath him to kind of just sit around and wait and hope that the phone will ring for him. He has a team, a program in the UNC Tar Heels that wants him. He's interested. So you know what? Take the opportunity. Try something new. I think it's interesting for him.
You talk about the hesitancy of other NFL teams to bring him on board despite the resume. Of course, 6 Super Bowls during his tenure as the head coach of the Patriots for 24 seasons. But why do you think teams have been hesitant to bring him on in the NFL, considering the pedigree, knowing that you have a guy that is arguably the greatest coach in NFL history?
Well, I think it's because you have to overhaul your entire organization when you bring in Bill Belichick. It's not just you're hiring a head coach, you're hiring a culture, you're hiring a seismic shift in your organization. You gotta remember, he's not just the head coach. He in as much as he says or is reported that he has said that he doesn't necessarily need the GM duties and wants the control of the roster, he's going to have his fingers in everything because you would want Bill Belichick to have his fingers in everything and be a part of every decision that the organization makes. Now, he's not the GM at UNC. He's hiring Michael Lombardi to be that, but they're best friends. They've worked together for a long time. Lombardi's going to answer to Bill Belichick in certain situations. So, he's getting that at UNC. In the NFL, I don't know if these organizations are willing to just simply hand over the keys to Bill Belichick, who, again, we reference is going to be 73 in April. You just don't know how long he's going to be around. Now, he's committing to UNC for 5 years, but from an NFL standpoint, you don't know if it's going to be just a couple of years till he gets the record and passes Don Shula, 15 wins away. Does he just get those wins and then leaves and you're kind of back into this situation a few years later? So there's maybe a little bit more risk there for organizations to not wanting to overhaul for a possible short period of time.
Considering the success he had here, the measure of success during his tenure with the Patriots, by most accounts of people, was winning the Super Bowl. And he did it 6 times, which was remarkable. What's the measure of success for being the head coach at UNC? And I guess, Tyler, specifically with Bill Belichick, many would say, I think us included, greatest coach of all time, as the head coach at UNC. Like, what do we look at now that he's on board as, hey, he's doing a good job there?
Right, because it's not like if he goes to an NFL team, we're like, okay, go win the Super Bowl. It's not the same thing in college. Where he's not going to, a blue blood SEC school to say, okay, I'm going to go win a college football national championship, go into the college football playoffs. It's not really going to be like that. To me, I look at this situation, and I don't claim to know UNC athletics as deep as someone who lives down in North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Obviously, we're from up here. It's not necessarily a deep college athletics area in Boston, but I do see some similarities for Bill Belichick going to UNC to when the Patriots hired Bill Parcells in 1993. We look at UNC as a basketball school. Every March Madness comes around, we're looking at them as a blue blood basketball school. And even with that said, I always would scratch my head and say, why aren't they better at football? Of course, they produce great quarterbacks like Drake May, and they have talent that comes into the NFL. But from a competitive standpoint, they're not in that same conversation as the UNC Tar Heels men's basketball team. It's a different thing. And so I wonder if Bill Belichick can do what Bill Parcells did with the Patriots in 1993, shift the culture, put them on a winning trajectory, stamp them as a legitimate NFL franchise, and in Bill Belichick's case, a legitimate football program in the college football landscape. And now, what does that look like? It's to be a competitive football team, be a hard out, be a team that no one in the ACC wants to play, because this football team hasn't really been that relevant. I mean, you have to go back to when Lawrence Taylor was playing for this team when they were legitimately winning the ACC. So, this is a guy that Bill Belichick coached for the New York Giants. We're talking like a super long time. So for me, I think it's for Bill Belichick, what would be the success to stamp UNC as a legitimate football program that can contend in the ACC and maybe flirt with a conference bid in going into the college football playoffs.
And then finally, Tyler, how does he need to change his coaching style? Because this is a different type of player now that he's going to be coaching. When you're in the professional ranks, a lot different than when you're in college, when you're between the age roughly of 18 to 22.
Yeah, I think this is a little bit overblown. I think a lot of people point to it and say, well, how is he going to deal with this, with the NIL and players constantly moving and shuffling? Well, he was an NFL GM. If anything, I'm more interested in seeing how he recruits and kind of, brings people in. Retaining players, I don't think is going to be a problem. I think that people are going to buy into this. You look at Deion Sanders at Colorado, I think is a kind of a great example, setting a culture and something that players want to play in. And I think that Bill Belichick, yes, there's a militaristic style that he ran in New England for a long time, but I think that that's going to kind of be embraced to the right college football athlete. Sure, some of them aren't going to like it, but if he can recruit the right players that buy into his system and he sells what he was selling on the Pat McAfee show, kind of making his soft pitch to say, hey, listen, UNC is going to be a pipeline to the NFL. I am going to coach you to get you to the NFL. That's what a lot of these players are looking for anyways. They're looking for that pathway to get to the NFL. And if they're at UNC, what better stamp of approval to an NFL head coach, an NFL GM during the draft, during the combine, than Bill Belichick telling them, hey, listen, this kid's great. Draft him. This is what you want on day 2, day 1 in the first round, day 3 in the 6th round. These are my guys. Having Bill Belichick in your corner during those times cannot be overstated.
This was not the move that any of us could have predicted, but that is sports. It's just like the 2001 Patriots. Who would have thought they'd win the Super Bowl? Who would have thought Bill Belichick would be the next head coach of the UNC Tar Heels? But that's the case. Tyler Sullivan, thank you so much for breaking it down with us, and you can catch his work at CBSSports.com.